Good evening, everyone. It's Friday again. Let me just pull this curtain a bit, get the glaring light off me bald noggin. That's a bit better. How are you all doing? It's been a warm one, hasn't it? Dearie me. As I was saying to somebody the other day, when they remarked how pink I looked in one of my videos, that's what comes of living in a part of the world where you get 360 days of drizzle a year, 4 days of sunshine and 1 day of thunderstorms. So, yes, I'm not built for this weather, but fortunately I have an antidote. Cheers, everyone. It's going to be one of those evenings. I get the taste already. Evening, Dan. Evening, Kieran. Evening, everyone else. How are you all doing? What shall we talk about? Normally, it might not seem like this, but normally when I sit in front of a camera to do like a recorded video, I have it all planned out. I have everything that I'm going to say. Let's see if I can get this light a bit better. I have everything that I'm going to say kind of all sort of mapped out, maybe on paper sometimes. And that's for like a 10 or 15 minute video. And then once a week, I come in here, fill myself full of beer and have no idea what I'm going to say. And somehow it all works out. Maybe there's a lesson in that somewhere. Oh, hello, Stuart. How are you? Hello, John. Hello, Tim. How are you, mate? That's my mate, Tim, in Germany. Yes, indeed. So let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up next week in the videos. There is, well, first of all, tomorrow, there's kind of, I've been inspired this week with this warm weather. Evening, Steve. Evening, Dan. I've been inspired, and I've been listening to a lot of like Isley Brothers, you know, because it's that sort of thing, you know, Summer Breeze and all that sort of stuff. So I started just strumming this funky little rhythm, and it turned into like a fusion-y kind of thing that's going up on YouTube tomorrow lunchtime. Then on Monday, there's going to be a solo going up, a viewer request. Jero, if you're listening, it's the one that you requested, a certain Gary Moore take on a Freddie King instrumental. And then what else have we got? If the delivery turns up on time, there's going to be a bit of a road test of a rather interesting little box of tricks, which is supposedly a Marshall amp in a little pedally box kind of thing. And we're also going to have the trial of Eric Clapton. It's just every time I post a Clapton video, I can predict the comments right from the off. Everybody's going to be saying Eric Clapton is the best guitarist. He's inspired. This is an incredible solo, yada, yada, yada. And then there's the people who are saying he's the most underrated, turgid, dull, moribund, kind of uninspired dullard who ever touched a guitar string. And there's never any kind of middle ground between those two comments. So we're going to have a little bit of a case for the prosecution. He is the dullest guitarist in the world, and the case for the defense that he is, God, basically, as was proclaimed in that famous graffiti. So that's going to be an interesting video. Probably going to be doing another one of these, compilation albums that should be made, but that's never been made. And I haven't really thought any further forward than that. So if there's any suggestions for any videos, be sure to shout up. Burn Clapton, he's a witch. Who's saying that? Beers are all lined up in my workshop. Wife says don't do any amp repairs. Well, I came upstairs this evening because it is a bit warm. I've got all mine in one of these cool bags. And as I was walking past the missus to go up the stairs, she says, "Where are you going with that?" I said, "I'm off to work. It's me briefcase. What's wrong with you?" And she just said, "Don't push your luck." Pros and Cons is a fantastic album, and Clapton's playing on that is fantastic, especially the title track. I did a video on that a while ago. you know, in many ways, I think Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking is the album that the final cut should have been. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, you know, you can hear the crossover. The track names escape me, but there's certainly songs that have very, very strong similarities. And which Clapton is on trial? Eric. You know, but I don't know. Clapton was my childhood hero until I learned about his racist rantings. Yes. Yeah, I mean, that is a bit of a stain on his character, it has to be said. If you've watched the documentary Life in 12 Bars, he does address that head on. And as far as I'm concerned with, you know, those things he said on stage, I'll go with Ray Charles's response to it. You know, I'm not going to take offense by anybody's drunk talk, was Ray Charles's, you know, take on it. And to his credit, Eric did make a groveling apology, not just a public groveling apology, but, you know, kind of in person to people who, you know, he felt needed a personal apology, you know. So, you know, I believe in redemption. So it's, you know, I think he's redeemed himself basically. But yeah, it is a bit of a stain on his past. Let's put it that way. Yeah, he was suitably ashamed. You know, it's one of those things. I mean, the drink does strange things to some people. I mean, it's personally myself. You know, I mean, I'm just a silly kind of slobbery, giggly drunk, but it does turn some people a bit nasty. Speaking of which, if you'll excuse me, I just need to go to work. Where are we? Once again, chaps, it is the Morrison's export. They've changed the can. Basically, I normally do my shopping at Aldi. But I'm just on such a tight schedule at the moment, and Aldi is a good 40 minutes away from me, and Morrison's is literally a 5-minute walk. So I've been going there. And this Morrison's Premium Lager, it's not bad stuff. It's 4.8%. It's about £3 for 4 tins. So, you know, it's perfectly acceptable. Evening, Craig. How are you? Evening, Greg. Clapton is a bit like Bowie. There are so many personas to him. Yeah, I'll go along with that. I mean, people often ask me if I'm a Bowie fan, and it's like, well, the stuff of his that I like, I really, really, really like. It's for me, it's Let's Dance is a fantastic album. And let's not forget, that's the album that, you know, I mean, anything that involves Nile Rodgers and Stevie Ray Vaughan, you've got to give it a listen, haven't you? You know, but that aside, you know, like kind of the, you know, Diamond Dogs, Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, all of that kind of era. It's got like childhood memories for me as well. You know, that famous Top of the Pops appearance where of Starman, you know, where Bowie and Mick Ronson are kind of you know, singing down the same mic, and it's an iconic image, that. And you know, I remember that being on the first time, and no matter how many times I see that in colour these days, I always remember it in black and white, because we only had a black and white telly back in those days. Yes, long live Stevie Ray Gray, indeed. Check out Leland Sklar's video on Cat People of Let's Dance. He played bit. I didn't know that. I've been watching a few of those Leland Sklar videos. The funny thing is, Leland Sklar, when I was just kind of scrolling past, you know, as you do on YouTube sometimes, I saw just one of his thumbnails, and there's a mate of mine over in the States. I got to know him through a songwriting and recording forum called Joe. No, the forum wasn't called Joe. My mate's called Joe. Not the same Joe who got me the Telecaster. Different one. But he looks identical to him. I thought, and I just thought, Joe started a YouTube channel. I said, oh no, it's Leland Sklar. There you go then, a Mick Ronson video. Brilliant, Steve. Yes, indeed. What a fantastic idea. How have I never thought of that? Watch this space. There'll be a Mick Ronson video going up at some point in the next week or less. What do you think about Johnny Marr, his custom Fender Jaguar Rickenbackers? I don't like his taste in guitars. I've never been a fan of Rickenbackers or Fender Jaguar, but what a player. I mean, you're talking about the player who plays for the song. And, you know, I mean, you think of that iconic guitar part on How Soon Is Now, or whatever it's called. And it's just an amazing guitar sound. In many ways, I liken Johnny Marr's guitar playing to that of Slash. I know what you're thinking. But is anybody else like me that, you know, back in the day, you used to listen to Guns N' Roses for Slash's guitar playing, and Axl's voice was the kind of price you had to pay to kind of get to hear Slash play the guitar. Well, in the same way, the Smiths, for me, Johnny Marr's guitar playing, it was just, yeah, well, okay, I'll put up with Morrissey's kind of off-key warbling, just so I can get to listen to this wonderful guitar player. You know, I think for that sort of textured, ambient, kind of intricate, playing the guitar with brush strokes kind of is the best way I can put it. For that kind of sound, I think Johnny Marr is far, far better than The Edge, who seems to get all of the credit as being the trendsetter in that particular idiom. He did most of the first Smiths album with a telly. That doesn't surprise me thinking about it, actually, because I can, you know, you can kind of hear, you know, a telly giving that sound. Marr is and was far more melodic than Slash. It's just different. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get into this kind of top trumps kind of game of who's a better guitarist, because, you know, it's just, it's comparing apples with oranges. You know, you either like the genre of music that a guitarist plays or you don't. And if you don't, then no matter how good that guitar player, I mean, for example, no matter how much I try, and boy, have I tried, Alan Holdsworth's music remains a mystery to me. I can appreciate the technique, and I can appreciate it in the same way as, you know, being amazed by, you know, a circus trapeze act or something like that. It's gobsmackingly technically brilliant, but it just doesn't connect with me emotionally. And if music doesn't do that for you, then, you know, there's not much you can do about it. Rory Gallagher was one of the influences that got me into slide playing. Well, I talked about this last week, actually. I mean, my slide playing. I was John Robson's one of the best. No, he's not. He's I know him very well, and he isn't. I used to have a job working in a supermarket, and I was the schmuck who used to have to kind of get about 30 trolleys in the car park and wheel them all back in. You know how bad it is trying to steer one. Try steering like 24 of them. And my fingers got trapped, and I ended up with a broken finger. So I could only kind of play with literally that finger. And I learned to, I just thought, I can't not play the guitar. So I taught myself slide during that time. Lots of Marr playing Smith songs on YouTube these days. Enjoy them without the Morrissey vocals. I might just do that, actually. Tim saying, I've never got Alan Holdsworth. Probably my musical ability isn't sufficient to appreciate him. You see, yeah, now, I've never really got that argument, really. you know, it's music is, if it's music that only kind of plays to the gallery and impresses the other musicians, then what you're talking about usually is music that is of such a high technical standard but lacks any kind of feel or emotion. Now, when I've seen Alan Holdsworth play, you can tell that he is emotionally engaged with his instrument. He is, you know, kind of, he's expressing something. It's just that I can't quite get what it is he's expressing. Jason, yes, I remember Jeff Healey. I went to see him at Newcastle City Hall on the, not what, See the Light wasn't the album. It was the one after that, and I can't remember the name of the album. It was that difficult second album, which in hindsight wasn't as good, but See the Light is a fantastic album. He did a lot of stuff off that album, and yeah, I mean, just you see kind of videos of him and stuff, but to see him in the flesh with the guitar, you know, kind of across his lap doing that kind of thing, it was like watching water running uphill. It's just like, I shouldn't be kind of seeing this while I'm hearing this. It was amazing. Steve says he feels the same about John Martin. Yeah, I can't get on with Tom Morello's guitar playing. It's the thing is, I've seen him playing guitar in inverted commas normally, and he's a canny player. You know, he's got some chops, but it's just that I just Rage Against the Machine's music. I mean, what was that other band he was involved with? What were they called? It was like one of these all-star supergroups. Had Chris Cornell with them as well, and wasn't one of the Red Hot Chili Peppers involved? Audio Slave, was that it? Was that them? And that was really a really good, just kind of classic hard rock band. Evening, Matthew. Yes, Jeff, he was in Roadhouse. That old Patrick Swayze film. Yes, I've watched that many a time. Craig's saying that Wes Montgomery was an amazing guitarist, not a big jazz fan, but love his playing. Yeah, you see, you're on the same page as me there, Craig. I like jazz, but a lot of jazz guitar turns me off. When I put a jazz album on, it's usually a Miles Davis album. And if I'm going to listen to jazz guitar, it's usually either Wes or Barney Kessel. Because I suppose, I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know, I mean, Larry Coryell and other guys like that, it just tends to kind of leave me a bit cold. But yeah, Wes was, I think, to be honest with you, it's not Barney Kessel, and who's the other guy? Midnight Blue. Who did I'll have to look that up. But he did Midnight Blue and did Chitlins Con Carne. Kenny Burrell, that's the guy. And they tend, all my favourite jazz guitarists tend to be the guys who are from the bluesier end of the spectrum. John Martin taught me a lot about altered tunings when I had a folk club in East London. Wow. Yes. I mean, John Martin's one of those guys, isn't he? That's a lot of his success comes from the fact that his admirers are famous people. You know, I mean, Clapton's covered a couple of his songs, and there we go. We're talking about Eric again. What really sold me on John Martin was years ago in the early 90s, there was a show on BBC Two, I think it was, called the Transatlantic Sessions, where it was just this hotel in the Outer Hebrides somewhere, you know, kind of remote Scottish kind of location. And, you know, they got like a bunch of folk musicians and Celtic musicians and a bunch of country musicians in from Nashville, and just said, okay, make some music and we'll film it. And, you know, it was just like kind of these Celtic folk country jams. And he was involved in that. And he really impressed me on that, I've got to tell you. Did I already mention my Harley Benton T? I keep checking headstock to make sure it's a Harley Benton. It's way beyond its money. Yep. as I said last time, I think a friend of mine's got a TE20, and I went round to play it the first time the other week since lockdown, and it's, you know, it's incredible. Yes, you can tell it's got like a cheap top-loaded pop metal bridge, and the tuners are a bit lumpy, but, you know, and the pickups sound a bit muddy. But you pick it up and you play it, and you think, yeah, you spend a bit of money on this and you'd have like a proper top-flight instrument. Agreed, Kieran. Samantha Fish is great. Yes, I've been working on a version of I Put a Spell on You with one of my students, Paul, who's probably lurking here at the moment. Are you there, Paul? Shout up if you are. Paul's a lad in Australia, and we have a lesson every Wednesday, and we've been working on you know, one of her live versions of I Put a Spell on You, and she's a fantastic player. I have to say. Did I mention my custom Gordon Myth Strat hasn't arrived, but I'll be sure to let you know when it does. Yes. You've got a custom Gordon Smith Strat. You lucky boy, indeed. Has anybody pulled the trigger on a Halo guitar yet? After that video the other day, I'm in the somewhat fortunate position. I don't wish to gloat, but you know, because playing the guitar is my living, you know, I can sort of justify spending that kind of money on a guitar, and you know, some of it I'll get tax relief on, and you know, so it works out a bit cheaper in the case of someone like me that, you know, is a musician. And dearie me, I've been severely tempted. I really have. That website is just addictive. You know, looking forward to lockdown finishing properly so I can get a Telecaster. Yep. To be honest, I've said this before, Bob, but you know, if you're called Bottleneck Bob, the fact that you've got the word bottleneck in your name and you haven't owned a Telecaster yet, this might be a bit divisive, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I am a bit of a fan of Top Gear. Yes, I know. Jeremy Clarkson, yes. He's not someone that I would kind of like to have in my own circle of friends, because you just get the feeling he'd be that kind of the boring one who never shut up. And that's my job in anybody's circle of friends. But you know, he has this theory, doesn't he, that you can't be a proper car enthusiast unless you've owned an Alfa Romeo. And I kind of feel that way about Telecasters. You can't really be a true guitar enthusiast unless you've experienced that kind of magic of owning a good Telecaster that just, you know, comes alive with every note. Evening, John, and greetings from Germany. I do enjoy your channel for quite some time. Well, thank you. It is. I've got to be honest with you. You know, I started putting videos up on YouTube in 2008, and here we are, you know, kind of 12 years later, and you know, I've got a few thousand subscribers, and it's all going rather well. You know, it's hardly been a stratospheric kind of rise to fame, if you can call this fame. I don't know, but you know, it was just a way of kind of drumming up some business for the guitar tuition side of things, and I've really started enjoying making the video, or not started enjoying, but I've grown to enjoy making the videos. And the overwhelming kind of feeling I get from people who comment on the videos and who, you know, kind of contact me and what have you is incredibly positive. I mean, people talk about the internet being, you know, a kind of cesspit of negativity and, you know, kind of bile and vitriol. That's not my experience of it at all. Well, maybe because I'm not on Twitter, that does help, I suppose. But, I think if you just put videos out there that are, kind of positive and, yes, I have a bit of a rant from time to time, getting stuff off my chest. But, people have been very, very positive. And I just want to say, while I'm here, yes, I've had a couple of beers and maybe I'm getting a bit emotional, but, thank you. Thank you to everyone who watches. And it's it's an engaging and lovely way to kind of earn some money. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Have you ever looked at carving? Now there, yes. Now here, let me just get on my soapbox for a moment, okay? One of my students, he's not coming at the moment because he was one of the face-to-face students, and bless him, Rick, if you're watching, he is, maybe not kind of up to speed with technology enough to kind of do the whole kind of Zoom or Skype lessons. So he's been on a bit of a hiatus lately. But he was desperate for a PRS. Desperate for a PRS. And he had the money and he just he couldn't find one that just floated his boat. So he bought a carving. This was when they were still called carving rather than Kiesel. And he bought one. And it's a carving that if you kind of half close your eyes, I think it's the CT6 California. I'll tell you how you'll find out which one it is. Just Google carving Joe Walsh, because Joe Walsh did a YouTube video where he's got exactly the same one. And he brought it into a lesson. And it was about a $2,000 guitar. And when you just pick up a guitar and you think, okay, yeah, I get it. I can feel and I can see and I can hear where every last penny of the money has been spent on this guitar. It was just, everything was just 11 out of 10. It was fantastic. So yes. So yeah, carving, love them. Well, I've played one and it just blew me away. So yeah. Jason, at the age of 58, I do get a kick out of a grown man playing. Since a stroke I suffered more than 7 years ago, my playing time is gone, but channels like yours are keeping my spirits up. Well, thank you. Thank you. That makes me feel very humble. You see, it's for me, it's, I'm just sat here in a room talking into a microphone and, kind of looking at a camera and blethering away. And it's sometimes easy to forget that, when I'm kind of doing this, it's having, people are inviting me into their homes, and there you go. Anyway, Dan saying my dream guitar would be a Cower Banshee played by Scott Holiday of Rival Sons. Okay, it's a complete Firebird ripoff, but never mind. Yeah, now you see, the thing is, I have a thing about Firebirds. When I was a young wee whippersnapper, I kind of got taken under the wing of a guitar player on the local pub and club circuit around here. I still, to this day, don't even know his surname. I just know he was called Bob. So Bob, if you're watching. Do you remember the Highland Lad in Norton? Those gigs there, yes, indeed. He kind of sold me on the idea of a Gibson Firebird, and I had this Gibson catalogue, and it was in there, and it was the kind of it was the original body shape, because they kind of changed it. There's the reverse and the non-reverse, but it was the original kind of one that looks a bit like a rounded-off Explorer with 3 little mini humbuckers and the upside-down Strat headstock, and it just looked like the coolest guitar in the world to me. So at some point, that will be on my list. It's one of the bucket list guitars, yeah, so a Firebird-style guitar. What about the Positive Grid Spark practice amp? Yes, well, I'm thinking about that, actually. It's just, I'm trying to justify the funds to buy it at the moment. I've got the Yamaha THR practice amp at the moment, which is absolutely amazingly good. It's a thing about the size of a shoebox, and it sounds like a stadium filling amp, albeit in this small room here. So I've kind of already got that covered, and I bought that just shortly before the Spark came out. So it's like, can I justify buying another amp just to do a video on? So I'm kind of putting the feelers out to try and borrow one, but with lockdown and everything, it's a bit difficult to kind of to make that happen at the moment. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it. Joseph saying, love your albums, they're really good. Yeah, I should mention those more often. Thank you, by the way. Thank you. I've got a couple of albums that are out that are available on Amazon and Spotify and Google Play and Apple Music. And they were all recorded in here, using the trusty Vox Tone Lab. I should really find the time really to because I've got a bunch of tunes in my head, and occasionally what I'll do is, like, whenever I'm demoing a piece of music or something, or for the Saturday jam or whatever, there's enough material in those kind of like little compositions that I do that are about a minute long. I could flesh those out into an album at some point, I'm sure, but it's literally just finding the time. To put that into context, I'm up at daft o'clock every morning, 5:30, and I'm in here for about 7, and it's usually 8, 9 o'clock on an evening by the time I finish. Bottleneck, you've just downloaded The Whiskey Made Me Do It. Thank you. Can't you get... what was that? Can't you get Spark to send you one for demo? Everyone seems to be doing it. Yes, but the thing is, you've got to remember, I've got like 16 and a bit thousand subscribers. I am an absolute minnow in a very, very big pond. Once you've got like 50, 60,000, maybe 100,000 subscribers, you can go to a big company and say, hey, lend me some gear and I'll do a review. But, it's difficult when you've got a small profile like me, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation. Stick with me, guys. Get me to a few more subscribers, and maybe we can do that. But it's I did have, Fret Zealot contacted me. The people who do the tuition aid, and you can see it on that black Strat copy back there, and I do not endorse as in, an endorsement deal, but I do kind of wholeheartedly, love the product that they make, because I've used it with students, especially beginner students, and it really, really does kind of get you motoring a lot quicker, because, it's kind of, it takes the kind of, the doubt out of remembering where to put your fingers, because it lights up and shows you where to put your fingers. That oftentimes, for instance, when you're doing chord changes, or when you're kind of learning something new, it's just that nanosecond of, oh, hang on a minute, where do I put my fingers? And then you've missed it, that causes things to go wrong, and that kind of takes all of that out of it. So that's why I'm a big fan of the Fret Zealot. They contacted me and offered me the product for, to kind of do a demo with. And there was that pickup company. Do you remember the Bipolar pickup company? Where it was like the Strat pickups, but each you could have like the sort of treble side of one pickup with the bass side of another pickup. I ended up not doing a video on those at all, because they sent me 2 sets of pickups and they were both defective. So in the end, they just said, "Oh, we don't want you to do a review anymore." Oh, really? What you're saying, Kieran? A fishing channel I watch asks all of his subscribers to form a community that supports each other's channels to help best the big boys and the algorithm. Okay, yeah, well, that's something to that's something to think about. What you're saying there, Bob? Sorry, I missed your comment there, Alan. Where are we? Anyway, sorry, yes, I'm spending too much time blethering and not looking at the chat, isn't it? I'll just say again, it never ceases to amaze me how many people are willing to spend their Friday evenings watching a fat lad get leathered. On some channels, you can see where the gear content overtook the music content. It's sad. Yes, indeed, it is. It's. I mean, you can rest assured here that if I tell you I like something, it's because I like it, and I'm rarely ever going to kind of make a negative video because I think there's just too much of that sort of stuff out there. So if I don't like something, I just won't make a video about it. And it's just, I do feel that there are some people who kind of have taken the shilling, and I think we all know who we're talking about. There are various channels out there that do this, and it's the reason I stopped reading guitar magazines. I remember, for instance, when Guitarist magazine was not afraid to give a big guitar company a bit of a kicking in a review. I remember the Ibanez Joe Satriani signature model, the first one that was kind of really put out, got an absolute slating in Guitarist magazine. And that was when Guitarist magazine was just a small kind of homespun thing run out of a little office above a newsagent's, probably in Ely in Cambridgeshire, and then they were bought out by Bauer Media, and suddenly it's like every guitar that they review is a fantastic guitar. Oh, and look there, 2 pages later, there's an advert for, like a double spread advert for that guitar company. You got your caricature T-shirt on. My granddaughter asked if it was supposed to be me. No, it's the fat lad off the internet. Jeff saying gear content, prefer beer content. Yes, well, that's what Fridays are all about. As I often say, I only drink on a Friday. It's just that some weeks have more than one Friday, and I'm afraid to say this week has had more than one Friday. I did get a little bit dusty on Tuesday night this week, I've got to tell you. I was just, I just had a night off. That rarest of all things. I had an evening off, and I thought it would be a sin to waste it, wouldn't it? So, Does anybody else have, I'm on the Heineken now, by the way. Does anybody else have a local shop that is within slipper walking distance? I do. It's about a 5-minute walk away, and I think I don't really need to put my shoes on to go there. So I'll walk there in my slippers. And in the other direction, actually, we have a fish and chip shop that's also within slipper walking distance. And the little newsagents at the top of our road, the great thing about them is that, yes, you pay a little bit more because it's not a supermarket, but the beer is in a fridge. So you can just, it's a spur of the moment thing. You can decide, and you can go up there and you can get cold beer. Just got a Harley Benton. Where are we? That's just disappeared. Sorry, that's just disappeared. I've lost your comment. Somebody just told me they've got a Harley Benton DC custom in Pelham Blue. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I've owned an Epiphone SG and a vintage SG copy, and I've done a review of a Harley Benton SG and a Gibson SG, actually. For a habitual Fender guy like me, any kind of SG guitar is it just everything feels like it's in the wrong place, you know. I can shut my eyes and on a Strat or a Telecaster or even a Les Paul, I can pretty confidently hit the 12th fret. I do that on an SG and I'm about the 16th fret. It's just because that kind of everything being a bit too far that way. Randy's saying, well, my brother, I like you. Good day from Southern Illinois. Well, good day to you from Redcar on an unusually sunny northeast England day. Yeah, I like looking at the Tom Ann site to see what they have. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not a lot at the moment. I am kind of gassing at the moment for a twin humbucker Telecaster, and you know, inevitably you've got to start thinking about those Harley Benton Fusion Ts, and I don't know, it's just, well, you know, the ones that I want all seem to be out of stock, and it's just I look at them and I'm thinking, well, you know what, I'd probably have to put some money into it as well, because not there's anything wrong with those guitars. Those Fusion Harley Benton Fusion guitars are great, but I'm just, my personal preference is for a vintage output humbucker, and I just find those Roswell humbuckers that Harley Benton are using now are a bit more kind of modern, kind of tonality, modern rock, kind of hot Alnico 5 pickups. So I'd have to kind of put a bit more, and by then it's not quite the kind of bargain that you think. Well, it is, you know, because you're getting the stainless steel frets and everything. But I just want something that's a bit more vintage looking as well. What is a good replacement for the lipstick pickup on a Telecaster? Okay, my favorite neck pickup on a Telecaster as a replacement pickup, I would say, is the Iron Gear, I think not Steel Twin. Iron Gear, I think it's Steel Foundry or something like that name. I can't remember, but Iron Gear make nice pickups. And if you want a big, fat neck pickup for a Telecaster that's got more of a P90 vibe going on, then check out the Axis R Us T90 pickup. That is a beast of a pickup. It's you know, you can, if you roll the tone control off a bit, you can kind of get a humbuckery kind of sound out of it, but still, you know, it's not muddy when you back it off, and you know, it'll still do that Brian May crazy little thing called love kind of sound. Have I tried the Radio Shack pickups? No, I haven't. No, you see, we used to have a shop in the UK, like excuse me, my watch strap is getting itchy. We used to have a chain of stores in the UK called Tandy, which was the equivalent of the US Radio Shack. And, you know, it was like an electronic components kind of store. And they closed down long before they started stocking guitar parts. But, you know, I haven't tried any of the Radio Shack gear, you know, but I am aware of it. Hi, John Ree. Last week, Convo YouTubers Andy Timmons. Oh, right. Okay. Last week's conversation, Andy Timmons. Yes. Oh, my. Yes, he is a bit good, isn't he? Excuse me. Yeah, you loved Tandy, did you, Ed? Yes. I've built many an effects pedal in my student days from components bought from Tandy. Why am I not on Bandcamp? I've got a couple of things up on Bandcamp, but it was just like, where do people go to find music? Well, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. I use DistroKid to get me music out there, and I've got to say, absolutely seamless. I have a Ferrocaster with Tone Rider pickups. Yeah, now that's the thing. I've heard a lot of good stuff about Tone Rider. Steel Foundry Overwound, that's the one. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stuff about Tone Rider pickups, but I've never ever experienced them. But that's the thing. As I was saying last week, I've got a mate. Well, not a mate. He's an acquaintance that I used to be kind of have a sort of a business dealings with, and he just kind of dropped off the radar. But he's a pickup guru. He's a pickup guy, and he makes kind of seriously high-end artisan pickups. And he tells me that, the raw materials cost for even the most kind of exotic pickup, maybe not those Seymour Duncan ones with the silver windings, but any pickup that involves sort of copper wire, your raw materials cost is like under a tenner, easily under 10 quid, and it's all about the branding. And here's something else that he told me as well, which is obvious once you think about it. And this comes from, shoot me down in flames if you will, okay? But this is something I've been told by a guy who makes pickups. None of the attributes that make up like a famous pickup, like a Seymour Duncan 59 or, a Damasio PAF Pro or Super Distortion or whatever. None of the things on that pickup that go to make that pickup sound like that pickup are copyrightable. It's just the only intellectual property that the pickup manufacturers own, that the big guys own, is their branding and their trademark, and that's it. So, once you know that, you can kind of think, well, okay, I'm going to look up in detail the specs of the pickup that I like the sound of that costs 100 quid. And I'm just going to go and find another company that makes a pickup with a similar spec. Simples. Buying pickup materials at scale is more like 2 quid, not 10 quid, I would have thought. Yeah, the main cost in a pickup is the copper wire. Okay. Now, this guy I'm talking about, he used a company called Electrosolar, who make like the best copper wire. That's the purest copper, not the kind of copper that's been kind of adulterated with melted down Coke cans and bean cans and what have you. But it's even at that sort of price, when you're paying kind of thick end of 100 quid for a guitar pickup, you've got to kind of think somebody's making a little bit too much money out of me here. I'm not against people making a profit. I get that. That's the kind of thing that, it's everybody's got a living to make, fair enough. But when people are just kind of taking the mick a little bit, then I start to get a little. It's like, here's an example, okay? Our dog, bless him, big daft lad that he is, border collie. We have pet insurance on him, and the first year that we were paying for this pet insurance, it was 20 quid a year, £19 something a year. And in that first year, we made a claim for, some minor ailment, but it looked like it could be kind of a long-term kind of thing, not a serious thing, but it could be kind of something that he would have recurrences of. And then the second year, suddenly it goes up to like about 30 odd quid. It almost doubles in the second year. And you think, yeah, that we can't go elsewhere. And, because he's got a pre-existing condition that means that will be excluded under other policies. So, you're just kind of ramping the price up now and you're just thinking of a number. That kind of rankles with me a little bit when people just charge more money because they can. And there are certain guitar brands and pickup brands that do that. Hi, John. Like you, I'm an old timer, 50 years playing now. Do you think the death of live venues and complete overkill of guitar in the 80s has killed it as we remember it? Well, here's the thing. I did a bit of a rant on this cast, the music business in. Here we go. We've got. Can you all still hear me? I've just had a notice that my connection is unstable. Anyway, yes, it seems to be good. The music business relies upon ticket sales now. Yeah, I'm there. Okay. The music business relies on ticket sales now rather than album sales because music is a free commodity that gets given away on streaming services and stuff like that. Excellent. Still working. So I don't think live music is going to die. I think there will always be a way to kind of do it, even if it means live music via a connection like this of some description. So I don't know. I mean, I think that we live in an evolving world, let's say, and I mean, yes, all the kind of festivals and everything are off this year and everything, but it's still going to be because these companies, these big record companies, aren't going to kind of just fold up their tents and walk away. Yes, you can make an album and you can release an album and you can sell an album without the help of a record company. But when was the last person who headlined at Glastonbury who, kind of got there via that route? It will happen. I don't doubt it. But, for the moment, the record companies rule, and the record companies are making their living or making their profits off ticket sales. And, if the tickets happen to be, tickets for some kind of online guitar thing. I mean, Guitar Fest is online this year, isn't it? Then maybe that'll be the way forward. I don't know. No one can predict the future, but all I'm saying is that people like to see other people playing live music. That has been, ever since we gathered around a campfire as cave dwellers. That has been the case, and I just don't see that changing radically anytime soon. I think the method of delivery might change, but it'll survive. What we're saying here. All good now, you're back. Yes, I am. Thank you. Yes, I just got a big kind of flashing warning on screen saying my internet connection was unstable. I think that might be down to the missus downstairs. She's got into this new Netflix show at the moment. So she's probably downloaded a box set or something, and that just ate up all the bandwidth for a moment. Yeah, taking the mickey on price, bought 2 Harley Bentons in the last 6 months. Given the price they can sell guitars of that quality, I can't see me spending more than £500 on electric guitar again. Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, I've always been open about this. I love Harley Benton guitars. I think when you've got this kind of supply chain of factory to retailer to customer, and you're cutting out all of the import, export, distributor, middlemen kind of people, you're always going to be able to sell something for of quality for a cheaper price. I just wish Harley Benton would maybe tag a little bit more money onto the price tag and do a bit more quality control. Part of, you remember when I was doing the guitars for good causes kind of thing, where I would raise money on GoFundMe and I'd buy guitars and, kind of get them in here, do a review and then sell them on for charity. The reason I was able to sell them on for a profit was because, if you were buying a Harley Benton that had been through my hands, you knew you were getting a good guitar. You knew it had been set up and the frets were level and, the action was low and it played pretty well. If you're buying one just from Toman, then it's a bit of a crapshoot, sometimes. I mean, if you're happy doing that kind of work, then fair enough, like that's me, but it's just I have this old-fashioned kind of thing. It's like, well, if something is offered as a product, then it should be fit for purpose. And if it's an electric guitar that you're offering for sale, no matter whether it costs £1,000 or £100, it should be fit for purpose and it should be playable. And it's just, I wish they would kind of pay a bit more attention to that. That said, we live in the real world, not the ideal world, and I'm perfectly happy to kind of spend £150, £200 on a guitar, spend an afternoon fettling it up, and have a guitar that's as good as something that would cost £500-600. I think for me that's an acceptable compromise. Harley Bentons would be great if they changed the name. I don't know. It's a name, it's just. It's, I mean, what are you going to call it? I mean, it's never bothered me, the name Harley Benton, Harley Davidson, Harley Quinn, whatever. It's just a name. Where are we? One of your best guitar for charity videos was the one where you mentioned modded an old Yamaha Pacifica. That wasn't for charity. That was my guitar. I paid for that out of my own pocket and modded that, and it was a lovely guitar. It played like a hot knife through butter, and somehow yet I never properly bonded with that guitar. And I got offered a good deal of money for it, more than I'd put into it. So I sold it. Yeah, you've heard horror story from Fender and Gibson, and that's top dollar. Where does it end? Indeed. I mean, the Fender Player Series at the moment, I've played a couple of those, and they are nice. It's like there are nice guitars hiding in there, but you've got to find them. You've got to sort out the fret sprout and the fret buzz and the high action and stuff. And it's like, come on, guys, I mean, sort this out. This is basic quality control. In a way, like, I don't mind fettling a 150 quid's worth of Strat to get it playing really well. But when it's 500 quid's worth of Strat, it's, that should have been sorted at the factory. What you're saying, Craig? I had a Jackson, paid a lot and had to set it up myself. Very annoying. Yeah, I mean, this is an analogy I used to make years ago. Excuse me. Oh, there it is. This is me last beer. We'll have to kind of wrap things up soon. An analogy I used to make years ago, right? Okay, you go to a car dealership, right? And it might be a kind of a budget car dealership. It might be, Kia, or it might be, who else is a cheap car manufacturer? I'm not into cars, but, Kia springs to mind. And you drive it away, and suddenly you find that the timing needs adjusting, and the fuel pump is a little bit off, and what have you. And you've got to take it to a garage to get it sorted out. You wouldn't stand for that. You'd take it back to the dealership and you'd say, sort this out. But with guitars, we seem quite happy to kind of accept a guitar that needs some setting up. Got a Tanglewood, spent as much as it cost an hour's work, but some of it was fun, not all. Yeah. I mean, this is it, There is the argument to be said that if you own a guitar and you play a guitar regularly, you should have some knowledge and some kind of experience and some, know-how about guitar maintenance, and I would go along with that. And my experience in that score came from, just habitually being only able to afford things like, the famous Marlin Sidewinder from the 80s and various other guitars like that. Cheap budget guitars that were that needed work doing. So you couldn't afford to kind of get anybody to do it for you. So you learned how to adjust the truss rod. You learned how to kind of, in my case, use the side of a matchbox to level a fret. There is that argument to say that that's a valuable skill to have. It's just nice to kind of, it's nice to have those skills, but it's, I still don't think that you should be expected to do that on a new guitar. Yeah, Alan, I've seen Jonathan Coe's YouTube channel. He is one of these guys that I know you shouldn't judge people on looks, because I'm not. Look at me, but you look at him and you think, okay, fair enough, and then he plays like an absolute demon. Dearie me, that guy can play. Real kind of lovely melodic touch. Fantastic player, and again, a big fan of Harley Benton's. You're waiting on Harley Benton making a Jazzmaster with proper Jazzmaster style pickups instead of P90s. Are they that different? It's a big, fat, wide single coil. Are they that different? I don't know. I mean, as you probably know, I'm not the world's biggest Jazzmaster fan. Mainly because of the looks. Yes, I am that shallow. I'm just not into that Fender offset kind of thing. With the possible exception, it has to be said, of the Fender Music Master. The first Fender guitar I ever played was a Fender Music Master, and just the thrill of putting my hands on the strings on the fretboard of a real Fender guitar. I was playing a satellite Les Paul copy at the time. That was my guitar, and I was at college, and there was a guy who had a real Fender, and it was a Music Master, and it had been butchered beyond all kind of recognition. Big fat DiMarzio super distortion pickup hacked into the bridge, and I seem to remember it was like a Telecaster neck pickup, but that thing was it was a real Fender, and that will always hold a fond place in my memories. Anyway, chaps, we've been going just over an hour, and I'm getting hungry, and not to put too fine a point on it, my bladder is telling me that it's time to wrap things up. So Thank you once again, everyone, for turning up. It has been an absolute blast. I still can't kind of quite get my head around that, 150 people every week turn up to watch a fat lad from the northeast of England kind of sit and drink beer and get leathered about cobblers. But you do. So thank you very much, everyone. Been fantastic. I'm going to go and get the curry on the go now. Great stuff. Thanks again for turning up, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks for turning up, guys. Been a blast. I'll see you next time. Time, gentlemen, please.